The night was unusually quiet in the suburban neighborhood of Willow Creek, with only the occasional rustle of leaves breaking the silence. However, this tranquility was disrupted when a curious, glowing object descended from the star-speckled sky and landed softly in the backyard of one unassuming bungalow my home. I peered out of my kitchen window while nursing a cup of coffee, my curiosity piqued by the faint humming sound that now filled the air. In the dim moonlight, I could barely make out the shape of what appeared to be a small spacecraft nestled among the garden shrubs. It was spherical, with surfaces shifting in colors that reminded me of the aurora borealis. I wasn't sure if I was witnessing a highly secretive government experiment or if my love for sci-fi was making me hallucinate, but I knew I had to investigate. Dressing quickly, I grabbed a flashlight and stepped out into the cool night air. As I approached the craft, the door seemingly made of light itself opened, and out stepped the most extraordinary creature I had ever seen. It stood on two legs like a human, but that's where the similarities ended. Its skin shimmered with a pearly luminescence, and it had large, expressive eyes that glowed with an eerie blue light. Its presence was both mesmerizing and intimidating. "Hello," it said, its voice melodic yet resonating with an otherworldly echo. "I hope I have not frightened you. My name is Kyra, and I come in peace from the planet Illyria." I was stunned, not just by the fact that an alien had just landed in my backyard, but also by the strange, almost euphoric feeling that washed over me as it spoke. It was as if its words carried a kind of harmonic frequency that was perfectly attuned to calm human nerves. Hi, I'm Alex," I managed to reply, my voice cracking slightly under the strain of my awe. "Welcome to Earth, and to my backyard, I guess." Kyra smiled, a gesture surprisingly human. It was then I noticed a subtle yet distinct scent in the air. It was sweet and intoxicating, unlike anything I had ever smelled. It seemed to emanate from Kyra, and I found myself inexplicably drawn to it. "I must apologize for my abrupt arrival," Kyra continued. "My ship encountered some anomalies during the journey through your solar system, and I needed to make an emergency landing. I assure you, I intend no harm." I nodded, still slightly dazed. "Is there anything I can do to help? And, what's that scent? It's really something." Kyra paused, her eyes reflecting a tinge of surprise. "That is the natural scent of my people. We emit pheromones as a way of communication. It seems they have a more profound effect on humans than I anticipated. I hope it is not unpleasant." "On the contrary, it's very calming," I admitted, "and actually quite pleasant." As we stood there, an unspoken connection began to form, facilitated by the alien pheromones. I knew nothing about Kyra or where she came from, but I felt an overwhelming urge to trust her, to help her. It was as if those invisible tendrils of scent were weaving a bond between us, a bond that I couldn't quite understand but also didn't want to resist. "I will need some repairs to my ship before I can continue my journey," Kyra explained. "It may take a few days. You can stay here as long as you need to," I offered without hesitation. "Let me show you inside. You can sleep in the guest room." As we walked back towards the house, I couldn't help but wonder about the adventures that awaited us. With every step, the scent of Kyra's pheromones seemed to seep deeper into my senses, pulling me into a world that was as mysterious as it was enchanting. Thus began the extraordinary days of living with an alien neighbor whose very essence I found irresistibly compelling. As dawn crept over the horizon, the first light of the day revealed the extent of damage to Kyra's spacecraft. Its hull bore the marks of cosmic turbulence, with iridescent panels misaligned and small fissures webbing across its surface. Kyra stood beside me, observing the craft with a clinical eye. "I require specific materials to mend my vessel," Kyra said, her voice tinged with a focus that was almost palpable. "Certain alloys and compounds that are not common on Illyria but, I believe, can be found here on Earth." "I can help with that," I offered eagerly. "There's a hardware store in town, and my friend owns a junkyard full of all sorts of metal scraps. We might find what you need there." Kyra nodded, her luminous eyes brightening. "Your assistance is invaluable, Alex. Let us proceed." The trip to the junkyard was an adventure in itself. Kyra, hidden beneath a large hoodie and sunglasses to mask her unearthly features, was fascinated by everything from the rolling fields we drove past to the quaint architecture of the small town center. Her curiosity was childlike, yet her questions about human technology and culture were pointed and intelligent, betraying a sharp, scientific mind. At the junkyard, we rummaged through piles of metal under the watchful eye of my friend, Joe. He raised an eyebrow at Kyra's covered figure but said nothing. Used to my eccentric projects, Kyra's hand paused over a twisted piece of metal, her fingers tracing the contours before her face lit up. This is what I need," she exclaimed, holding up a chunk of what looked to me like nothing more than a rusted part of an old car. "It's perfect. The composition is almost identical to the alloys used in Illyrian crafts." We gathered more pieces, each one seemingly random but clearly essential to Kyra. By the time we left, the back of my truck was laden with what was essentially interstellar ship repair material. On the drive back, the scent that Kyra emitted was stronger, mixed with undertones of excitement and relief, which in turn affected me with a sense of accomplishment and exhilaration. Back home, Kyra wasted no time. She laid out the materials and began the meticulous process of reconstructing the damaged parts of her ship. I watched in awe as her hands moved with precision, her pheromones weaving through the air, creating an atmosphere of serene focus that I found deeply addictive. "Your technology is fascinating," I remarked as I handed her a tool. "It's so different from anything we have here on Earth." "It is born of necessity," Kyra replied without looking up from her work. "Illyria is a harsh world, much of it inhospitable. We have had to be resourceful and innovative to survive." As the day turned to evening, Kyra's ship began to regain its original form, the fissures sealing and the panels realigning with almost organic fluidity. The glow of the setting sun cast long shadows over the yard, and the air cooled, but the warmth between Kyra and me grew. It wasn't just her pheromones now. It was the shared effort, the silent understanding of cooperation between two vastly different beings working towards a common goal. "This is good work," Kyra finally said, stepping back to admire the partially restored ship. "Thank you, Alex. Without your help, this would have been a much more arduous task." "It's nothing," I said, though in truth, helping her had given me a purpose I hadn't realized I was missing. "Will you tell me more about Illyria? About your people?" Kyra looked at me, and in her gaze, I saw the weight of stories untold, worlds unseen. As she began to speak, the evening air filled once more with her enchanting pheromones, pulling me deeper into her world, a universe away yet here beside me. Under the canopy of stars that blanketed the night sky, Kyra shared tales of Illyria, painting pictures of vast, silver deserts and towering crystal forests that whispered with the winds of her world. Her voice, harmonized with the subtle symphony of her pheromones, made the stories come alive in the cool night air. "Illyria wasn't always a desolate place," she began, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "It was once covered with expansive oceans and lush vegetation. But celestial misfortunes, a series of meteor impacts, changed its climate drastically, turning it into the arid world it is now. The resilience of her people intrigued me. How did you adapt? Surviving such changes must have required incredible ingenuity." Kyra's lips curved in a wistful smile. "It did. We learned to harness the energy of our twin suns, and our scientists engineered ways to extract water from the minerals beneath the surface. We adapted because the alternative was extinction." Her words stirred a mix of admiration and sympathy within me. The resilience of an entire species against such cosmic adversities was awe-inspiring. "You must miss it," I ventured. "Your home." "I do," she admitted, her gaze drifting to the constellation I had pointed out as Orion. "But Illyrians are explorers by nature. The universe is vast, and we yearn to understand it, to see worlds beyond our own even if it means we cannot return." The intimacy of the conversation drew us closer. Her presence, once an enigma, now felt like a beacon of warmth in the cool night. I noticed her leaning slightly towards me, her scent enveloping us in an almost visible shroud. "It's late," I finally said, though reluctant to break the spell her stories had woven. "We should get some rest." "Yes, rest," she echoed, though her tone suggested her mind was still among the stars. Inside, I showed Kyra to the guest room, but sleep eluded me. My mind replayed our conversations, her descriptions of Illyria, and the subtle expressions of longing and wonder on her face. I found myself imagining the crystal forests and silver deserts, so alien and yet now so vivid in my mind. The next morning, I found Kyra outside, observing the early birds fluttering in the garden. Her interest in Earth's wildlife seemed genuine and insatiable. She asked questions about everything from the ecosystem's balance to the behaviors of specific bird species. "As much as I am here to repair my ship," she said, watching a robin hop across the lawn, "I am also here to learn, to gather knowledge and share it with my people." The day passed with us exploring the local area. I took her to a nature reserve, explaining Earth's conservation efforts, our struggles with climate change, and the species we were trying to protect. Kyra listened intently, comparing it to Illyrian efforts and noting both similarities and differences in our approaches. As we walked back, Kyra paused, her hand brushing against a flowering bush. "On Illyria, we have a plant that senses touch and emits light in response. It is used for both practical and ceremonial purposes." "That sounds beautiful," I responded, enchanted by the idea of living lights. "It is," she agreed, then turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Alex, you have shown me much kindness. Would you like to see my ship from the inside? I could show you some of Illyria's technology." I nodded, eager for the chance to step even briefly into her world. As we approached the now nearly repaired spacecraft, her scent grew stronger, a mix of excitement and an indefinable spice that made my heart race. Inside the ship, the technology was beyond anything I had imagined. Screens floated without any visible support, displaying star charts and complex equations in a flowing script. Kyra explained the functions of various instruments, her pride in her culture evident as she spoke. The ship was a small piece of Illyria, a slice of another world sitting quietly in my backyard. As Kyra showed me a hologram of her plane, Kyra's fingers glided over the holographic controls, dimming the lights inside her ship and enhancing the display of Illyria. The room was bathed in a soft glow, casting both of us in the surreal light of another world. Her explanation of Illyrian technology was not just an academic discourse. It was a poetic unveiling of her civilization's heart and intellect. "We developed this technology to cope with our environment," she explained as a three-dimensional structure spun gently in the projected air. "This is a replicator. It can produce almost any material we need, based on atomic reconfiguration. It saved us during the scarcity following the cataclysms." I was mesmerized. "It sounds like magic," I murmured, half joking, yet struck by the thought that to early humans, this would indeed resemble sorcery. Kyra smiled, her eyes twinkling with a mixture of amusement and pride. "To you, perhaps, but to us, it's a necessity. Science and necessity, as I've learned, are the mothers of invention on any world." As she continued the tour, her explanations were interspersed with anecdotes about the scientists and engineers who had developed these technologies. Each story was imbued with respect and nostalgia, giving a personal touch to the advanced machinery and gadgets. Our people believe that technology should not only serve practical needs but also reflect our cultural values and aesthetic senses, Kyra noted, gesturing toward the sleek designs and harmonious lines that characterized her ship's interior. The beauty of the design was undeniable, a blend of functionality and art that seemed to embody Illyrian philosophy. As the afternoon waned, Kyra showed me one of her favorite technologies, a device that looked ordinary but held extraordinary capabilities. "This is a memory archiver," she said, holding up a small, intricately designed orb. "It captures memories, not just in images or sounds, but with all associated sensations and emotions." She activated the orb, and suddenly, the room was alive with a scene from Illyria. I could feel the warm breeze, hear the rustle of the crystalline leaves, and even smell the faint aroma of Illyria's unique flora. "This is remarkable," I gasped, overwhelmed by the sensory flood. "It's like being there." "That's the idea," Kyra replied, her voice soft with reverence for her home. "It helps us remember where we come from, keeps us connected to our roots, no matter how far we roam." As the vision faded, a silence fell between us, filled with a complex tapestry of emotions, wonder, longing, and a budding sense of kinship. Kyra turned to me, her expression earnest. "Alex, I have a proposal for you. Since you've shown such interest in my world, and given that my ship is nearly ready, would you consider coming with me to see Illyria for yourself?" The invitation was unexpected, thrilling, and terrifying all at once. The idea of traveling to another planet, of seeing the wonders she had described, was like a dream. Yet, the reality of such a voyage, the dangers, and the unknowns, gave me pause. Kyra seemed to sense my hesitation. "Take your time to decide. I know it's a lot to consider, but I think you would find Illyria as fascinating up close as you do through my stories." We left the ship, stepping back into the familiar surroundings of Earth. The contrast between the advanced alien technology inside the ship and the simple, earthly beauty of my backyard was stark. I looked at Kyra, this remarkable being who had crashed so unexpectedly into my life, and felt the edges of my world expanding. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, pondering her offer. The possibilities swirled in my mind like stars in a galaxy, each one a beacon of potential adventures and experiences. Could I really leave everything behind to journey across the cosmos? The question loomed large, as vast and mysterious as space itself. The decision weighed on me for days, each morning bringing a fresh tide of doubts and excitement. Conversations with Kyra became interspersed with my questions about interstellar travel, about the risks, and about what life on Illyria would entail. Her answers were always honest, sometimes starkly realistic about the challenges, yet imbued with an underlying current of enthusiasm for her planet and its wonders. One evening, as we sat watching the sunset, a routine we had grown to cherish during her stay, Kyra revisited the topic. "Have you thought more about my invitation?" Her tone was gentle, giving me the space to express my uncertainties without pressure. "I have," I replied, my gaze fixed on the horizon where the sky met the earth in a blaze of orange and pink. "It's not just a visit, is it? It could be more permanent." Kyra nodded, understanding the depth of my realization. "It's a significant change, one that involves many adjustments and a new way of seeing your place in the universe. But, Alex, it's also a chance for discovery, for growth that few ever get to experience." Her words struck a chord. The mundane had always felt like a silent constraint to me, and Kyra had unraveled the seams of my daily existence, showing me the boundless nature of reality. My heart longed for the vast unknown, for the crystal forests and twin suns, for the adventures that awaited among the stars. Taking a deep breath, I turned to her, my decision clear. "I'll go. I want to see Illyria, to explore and understand more of this vast universe. It's terrifying, but it's also the most exciting prospect I can imagine." Kyra's face lit up, her eyes shimmering with joy. "You won't regret it, Alex. Illyria will be a new chapter, a new canvas for your curiosity." The next days were a whirlwind of preparation. Kyra briefed me on the essentials of space travel, from the physiological adjustments to understanding Illyrian social customs. We packed, though I took little, focusing more on the tools and books I could bring along to learn and document our journey. The night before our departure, the whole neighborhood seemed to be asleep, unaware of the monumental journey that was about to take place from the quiet confines of a suburban backyard. Kyra's ship, fully repaired and gleaming under the moonlight, looked like a beacon of the future, a vessel to the stars. "Are you ready?" Kyra asked as we stood before the open hatch. "As I'll ever be," I said, a mix of nerves and excitement buzzing through my veins. Stepping into the ship, I felt a final pang of nostalgia for Earth, for the familiar and the comfortable. But as the hatch closed, sealing us within the sleek confines of the Illyrian craft, a profound peace settled over me. The ship hummed to life, the panels lighting up with otherworldly energy, and we began our ascent, leaving behind the only world I had ever known. As we broke through the atmosphere, the stars welcoming us into their fold, I looked over at Kyra, grateful for her presence, her friendship, and the incredible journey she had invited me to share. The pheromones, once a mysterious allure, now felt like a shared language, a bond that transcended words. Kyra glanced at me, a smile playing on her lips. Welcome to the cosmos, Alex. The stars stretched endlessly before us, each one a promise of new worlds, new stories, and a new home. As Illyria awaited us, I realized that the journey wasn't just about seeing another planet, it was about seeing everything, including myself, through new eyes. The universe was vast, and our adventure was just beginning.